FIFA has a ball so sensitive it can detect a single strand of human hair brushing against it. That actually happened earlier in this tournament. A goal got ruled out because the sensor picked up the ball grazing a player's hair. So explain this to me, how did that same piece of supposedly flawless technology look at a World Cup quarterfinal? At a moment half the world swears they watched happen with their own eyes and conclude that nothing happened at all. Norway are heading home, England are through to the semifinals, and the reason behind it has everyone asking the same two questions. Does the video review system actually work, or does FIFA just point it wherever it feels like on any given day? Let's break it down. First, give this match the credit it deserves, because it was a genuine classic, and it deserves better than to be remembered only for the arguments that followed. This was played in brutal conditions, the kind of Miami afternoon where it felt like well over 100 degrees with the humidity, a physical battle as much as a football one. For long stretches, Norway were the better side. Andreas Schjelderup put them ahead in the 36th minute with a beautiful strike that beat England's goalkeeper at his near post. And the Norwegian fans inside the stadium started singing that England were going home. They believed it. Erling Haaland and Martin Ødegaard were controlling the game. And Norway, in their first ever World Cup quarterfinal, were 45 minutes from a semifinal nobody expected them to reach. Then, as he's done all summer, Jude Bellingham stepped in during first half stoppage time. He picked up a pass from Anthony Gordon, drove into the box, and finished brilliantly past the goalkeeper to make it 1-1. It was a fantastic goal, and it's also the exact goal this entire controversy is built around. We'll come back to it because the argument isn't about the finish itself. It's about something that happened 30 yards away, just a few seconds earlier. The second half belonged to Norway. They controlled possession, with Ødegaard pulling the strings and a Norwegian effort rattling the crossbar, while an England cross got cleared off their own goal line, but Norway couldn't find the goal that would have settled things. Then, 3 minutes into extra time, Bellingham struck again, pouncing on a shot from substitute Morgan Rogers that Norway's goalkeeper could only parry into his path, and slamming it home for the winner. That was his 6th goal of this World Cup and his 7th overall in the competition, moving him past Jeff Hurst in England's all-time record books at just 23 years old. Norway threw everything they had at it, even substituting Haaland himself midway, through extra time in search of a response. But an exhausted England side held on. 2-1, semifinal booked. A quick word on Bellingham, because he has genuinely been sensational at this tournament. 2 goals against Norway means he now has 2 separate multi-goal games in a single World Cup knockout run, the first Englishman ever to do that. He's tied England's single tournament scoring record of 6 goals. He's been named player of the match so many times he'll need extra luggage to bring the trophies home. This tournament is turning into a 2-man show between him and Harry Kane, and increasingly, it's just Bellingham, a 23-year-old who keeps deciding massive games in the exact moments his team looks like it's losing control. None of what comes next takes anything away from that. His finishing was world class. This isn't a debate about whether Bellingham is good. It's a debate about what happened before the ball ever reached him. On pure football, England found a way to win. But 2 specific moments are why Norway feel cheated, and both are worth examining closely. Start with the big one, the equalizing goal itself. When Norway's goalkeeper cleared the ball upfield just before Bellingham's first goal, the ball did something strange. It seemed to check in mid-air and drop almost straight down, landing awkwardly at the feet of England's Elliot Anderson, who fed Gordon, who fed Bellingham. Norway were adamant about why. They insisted the ball had clipped one of the cables holding up the robotic camera that hangs above the pitch. Their goalkeeper pointed straight up at the sky the moment the goal went in. So did Haaland. So did head coach Ståle Solbakken, who confronted referee Clement Turpin about it at halftime. Their assistant coach said plainly that the referee should have caught it. And here's why it actually matters under the rules. If the ball strikes an outside object, like a camera cable, that counts as outside interference, and the referee is supposed to stop play immediately and restart with a dropped ball, no goal. If the ball really did hit that wire, the equalizer should never have counted in the first place. FIFA's response was quick and absolute. Their statement said the sensor chip built into the match ball showed no spike, no unusual reading while the ball was in the air, meaning there was no evidence it had touched anything at all. And this is where it gets genuinely frustrating, because that same sensor technology is known for being almost absurdly sensitive. This is the same tournament where a Croatian goal was ruled out because the chip detected the ball brushing against the hair of one of their own players. Hair, England's own head coach, Thomas Tuchel, pointed to that exact fact, essentially asking if this chip can detect a strand of hair touching the ball. How does it detect nothing when the ball supposedly struck a solid steel cable? Either the ball genuinely never made contact with it, or, as some analysts suggested, the tracking system simply doesn't reach that high above the pitch, meaning there's a blind spot in the technology exactly where this incident happened. FIFA maintains that all of the antennas positioned around the stadium were active and working, and that the camera footage itself doesn't even shake. Solbaken's response to all of it was simple. His own eyes told him one thing, FIFA's sensor told him another. And FIFA is asking everyone to trust the chip over what they watched happen live. Now, the second call, because on its own, the cable incident would just be bad luck. But stacked next to what happened 10 minutes into the second half, it becomes something much harder to dismiss. Norway scored again with Torbjørn Hegem turning the ball home off a corner, and the stadium erupted. Then the video review pulled it back, ruling that Holland had fouled Anderson with a push during the build-up. And to be fair, it was a foul, a clear two-handed shove. And under the stricter standard FIFA has applied to grappling at set pieces this tournament, it's a completely defensible decision to rule out. That's not really the issue. The issue is the contrast between the two calls. One prominent football analyst summed it up well, pointing out that a push, the kind that happens on nearly every single corner kick, got reviewed in forensic detail and overturned, while a cable that visibly struck the ball went completely unchecked. That's really the entire scandal in one sentence. Think about what the review system chose to do in this one match. It went digging through a corner kick frame by frame, hunting for the kind of upper body contact that happens dozens of times a game, and found enough to wipe out a Norwegian goal. But when the ball visibly changed direction in mid-air moments before an England goal, nobody even glanced at the camera angle to check. One end of the pitch got examined under a microscope. The other end didn't get looked at all. And it's not just this match. As one journalist pointed out, this is now the second time in this tournament a major moment has broken England's way like this. The real issue isn't whether Holland pushed someone or whether a cable got clipped. The issue is that nobody watching can predict from one decision to the next when the review system is going to step in and when it's going to look away. And a system nobody can predict is a system nobody can trust. So let's take this seriously for a second, because I don't want to sell you a robbery that wasn't one. Honestly, both of these individual calls are defensible on their own. FIFA's sensor really did register no contact, and that sensor really is extremely sensitive. So there's a genuine chance the ball never touched the cable at all, and Norway's eyes deceived them in a chaotic moment. Even a respected refereeing expert made the fair point that a review team realistically wouldn't be scanning a camera angle high above the pitch while reviewing an attacking move, and that officials are under real pressure not to be so forensic that they start inventing problems with a perfectly good goal. On the Holland push, the rules are the rules, and he did shove Anderson. And here's the part England fans are right to point out: Bellingham's goals were brilliant regardless of any of this. The winning goal came from Norway's own goalkeeper spilling a routine save, nothing to do with any cable. Bellingham has been the best player at this World Cup by a wide margin, and England, for all their struggles, kept finding a way through. Even Haaland himself, who had every reason to be bitter, refused to call it a robbery, describing it simply as a 50-50 call that went against them, and adding generously that England are a good team. Solbakken said he could sit and be upset about it, but chose not to. When the people who were wronged are this gracious about it, that's worth paying attention to before reacting louder than they did. And here's a detail that quietly undercuts the idea that the review system simply favored England the entire night. It also went against them. Late in the game, England thought they'd won a penalty when one of their players went down under a challenge, and the referee initially pointed to the spot, only for the review system to pull him over to the monitor and overturn the call. That's a significant decision taken away from England in the closing stages of a knockout match. So the full picture isn't a referee bending everything one direction. It's a referee and a review team making a string of debatable calls that went in different directions, and that's really the point. This isn't the story of a fix, it's the story of chaos. But here's the part FIFA can't talk its way around. This isn't really about one team being favored. There's no evidence England were deliberately helped, and that would be the lazy version of this story. The real problem is much more basic, and honestly more embarrassing. FIFA simply cannot apply its own officiating consistently. They've sold this technology to everyone as the thing that removes all doubt from the game. The ball that can feel a strand of hair, the cameras that measure offside down to the millimeter. And then, in the biggest possible moments, that same system detects a hair in one match and can't tell you whether a ball struck a massive cable in another. It overturns a goal over a routine corner push, but won't even review a mid-air deflection that changed the entire outcome of a game. It's not that the technology itself is rigged. It's that the people deciding when to actually use it, when to dig deep, and when to simply wave play on have no consistent standard that anyone can follow. The technology didn't fail Norway. The judgment surrounding it did, and that lands in the worst possible tournament for it. Because FIFA's credibility was already in poor shape long before this match in Miami. This is the same World Cup where a red card suspension got lifted after a phone call from a president, where Egypt filed a formal complaint accusing officials of injustice, where a red card ended Switzerland's tournament amid its own round of review controversy, and where this kind of dispute keeps happening in match after match. So when this camera cable story lands on top of everything else, people don't reach for unlucky, they reach for here we go again. You can see it in the reactions. Haaland's own father posted a pointed well done Bellingham and referee online. That's the reputation FIFA has built for itself this summer. Piece by piece, a governing body with world-class technology and a coin flip approach to using it, to the point where even a defensible decision now gets met with eye rolls and accusations. They earned that distrust, nobody handed it to them, and here's the thing, if that cable-assisted goal had helped a different team, half the internet would already be convinced FIFA hung the wire there on purpose. But the more honest, less dramatic truth here isn't a conspiracy. It's incompetence dressed up as precision. Norway didn't lose to a plot. They lost to a brilliant Bellingham, some shaky goalkeeping of their own, and an officiating system so inconsistent that it can't even be relied upon to make the same kind of mistake twice. So where does this leave everyone? England move on to Atlanta for a semifinal on Wednesday against Argentina, carrying Bellingham, Kane, and a real chance at their first World Cup title since 1966, but also carrying genuine concerns about tired legs and a game they let slip more than they should have. Norway fly home from the best tournament in their football history, a first ever quarterfinal, built largely on Haaland's goals, on the wrong end of two calls that could easily have gone either way. And in a fairer version of events, maybe should have. There's a cruel footnote here too. Haaland, the breakout star of this entire World Cup, the man responsible for more than half of Norway's goals on the way to this stage, finished the biggest game of their history almost invisible. He had fewer touches than any other player on the pitch, fewer than half as many as his own goalkeeper, crowded out and starved of service before being substituted off injured in extra time. For a tournament that introduced Norway as a genuine footballing force, that's a quiet, painful way for the run to end, and FIFA faces yet another version of the same question it's dodged all summer. What's the point of building the most advanced officiating technology in the sport's history if nobody trusts the people deciding when to actually use it? Do you believe FIFA's censor over what your own eyes saw on that cable? Or is the review system simply broken at this point? Make your case in the comments, and stay tuned, because England versus Argentina on Wednesday might end up being the match of the entire tournament.